Hello, everybody. Master Mirrors back here again. So say welcome to my channel. Today, as you can see by the screen, we're going to be starting a new series on the channel. This is going to be games versus graphics. Now, you might be asking, what is games versus graphics? I'm here to tell you. So, games versus graphics is going to be my sort of graphics game comparison type of thing. We're going to be comparing different games and how their graphics look on different versions, whether it be console, Switch, PC, and the like. So comparing the graphics, frame rate analysis, and sort of overall how things look and appear at different states with the versions. And if you want to see more of this, make sure to hit the like button. So you can see more games versus graphics on the channel. And then at the end, what we're going to be doing is showing you more cool games I think that are pretty stylized that I think you should definitely check out. So without further ado, let's get started. So now we're looking at Forza Horizon 4. Now as you can see with this, I really wanted to capture how many of the main elements of the PC version of Forza Horizon can actually bring. So the particle effect, the lighting, and more of the overall open world, I guess, aspect of the game and how it syncs pretty well compared to the Xbox version, which we'll see in a minute. So as you can see, it's running at 60 frames a second and 1080p, which is good. Unfortunately, it cannot run at 4K because they don't have a 4K monitor. But if it did, I'm pretty sure it could run at 4K, all maxed out graphics. As you can see, collision stuff is really nice, how the trees function, and just overall lighting of the game. Now you will see a couple of dips, and that's because I'm using a recording software, and it's kind of missing that stuff. But yeah, looking at the overall image, you should be seeing Big Canyon now, so the fog effect works really well. The speed at going 200 miles an hour can really not lag at all compared to the Xbox One version. What you'll actually notice when we switch over to that version is a bunch of lighting differences in how they sort of affect the overall gameplay. But overall, the PC version of Forza Horizon 3 looks very nice. Now moving on to the Xbox version as this clip finishes up, we are going to see on a side-by-side comparison that the lighting is definitely different from the Xbox version as it has a more stable lighting versus the PC version, which has a more dynamic lighting that can shift between like different metals and stuff, where the Xbox One S version, even though it's at 30 frames a second instead of 60, can still hold up pretty well in terms of the lighting, just not as well in terms of the speed and stuff, though it's some frame rate differences than the PC version can. You can also see in the side-by-side comparison how the different trees and stuff look at different rates and stuff. They might be clipping, which they seem to be. But other than that, I would say that the PC version of this definitely overweighs sort of the issues that it could have of stability. Moving on from Forza, we have Final Fantasy 15. So as you can see from the opening thing, we're comparing the PC, PS4, and Xbox One versions. From the fighting system and the detailing all around, you can see that each version is running at different frame rates, but a solid 30 frames a second. And unlike the 60 frames a second, this is a little bit slower, but can have a lot more detail. Now we're going to be going into the more viewing distance thing. So you can see PC in the background has a more lighter distance viewing than the actual thing in the PS4 version compared to the Xbox One version. And it's going to, if we freeze frame the shot right here, is we're going to see the fact that the looking train thing is actually a lot better on the PC version than it is on the PS4 and Xbox One, and overall it's a better performance, although I should note this is a generation ahead of the rest of the stuff. Lastly, for Final Fantasy, we're going to be looking at the shadows. So the shadows for the PC version has a considerably higher resolution for the shadows than the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. Moving on from this to Rocket League, you can see it's a very big difference between this and the Switch version later on, but what we're going to be looking at is the more particle effects and the stability thing. As you can see from more of a close-up shot of actual gameplay of this, the cars and the grass and the lighting and everything works very well in tandem with everything else. There's no graphical glitches or slowdowns except from the recording software. You can see turning works very well, it's very smooth. Gruen, boost effects work well, spinning, jumping, all that stuff that you'd like to see, running at a solid 60 frames a second and 1080p. Particle effects seem to be working pretty well as well, and pardon my very bad gameplay ability as this, I haven't played Rocket League in a couple months after this. But yeah, so turning, camera angles, all that stuff work. You can toggle ball cam off and on, and all that works well. The sun from the flare and the lenses and stuff also seem to have an effect here as the arena is very circular and has that sort of momentum. Now what we're going to see here in a moment versus the Switch version is just the difference in overall detailing that ends up happening. As you can see, the glow effect works pretty well. Now moving on from that to the Switch version, you can see a very big difference in a bunch of things, from the lighting to how the cars looked, everything almost having a comic book type of style. And then what we end up seeing is that there is not a lot of boost effects Everything is very staged and segmented in a way. This is without the ball cam, but yeah, it's pretty slow going. It's running at 30 frames a second. And yeah, it just overall seems to be less capable. The camera angle doesn't move as smoothly, the textures aren't as bright and vibrant, and overall it just doesn't look nearly as good as something you'd be able to get on the PC. And finally, the last game we're going to be reviewing is Overwatch. So as you can see from the overall beginning screen and the battle system, everything seems to be working pretty well. So what you can see is that the shadows, the sun, and everything really works in tandem. You can see when they're fighting is smooth, it's very 60 frames a second, lighting is great, and as you can see, I'm really bad overall. So the death animation works perfectly fine, camera angle and viewing is excellent, any text that might show up during game is clear and crisp, everything runs at a smooth 60 frames a second, and there's rarely any drops. And what you can see from this is that movement is also pretty clear, shooting, all that stuff is very fluent, and I see no differences with them. Going on to heavier characters now, since we're doing Genji, heavier characters move very fluently. You can hear all the sound effects work pretty well, and overall the environments that Overwatch creates with this version are actually really good. Moving on to the PS4 version, we can actually see a bunch of differences in small, minute details that you can't actually see in the PC version. For instance, the detailing of the text as well as many shadows and stuff seem to be quite different, as well as like character weapons and all that stuff. Now, what we're going to be able to do is, if I just shrink this image a little bit, right here, I can actually see a bunch of interesting things that begin to pop up. So, as we shrink the image, we are able to see two things. As I freeze frame it, you're able to see the characters are very still and not as sharp in terms of overall detailing. The lighting is also different. The lighting isn't as smooth, bouncing off the characters, similar to what I said with the Forza thing. And you can also see the weapons are pretty different too. They're not as shiny and don't bounce off things as they probably should. But overall, if we look at what ends up happening with the PC version versus the PS4 version, there are a lot of similarities. It's not too bad. They both run 60 frames a second at 1080p, and the lighting is pretty good. And overall, I'd say it's a good buy to get either versions of the game. The Last Night is a cinematic platformer experience developed by Oddtail Games and published by Raw Fury. It attempts to bridge the gap between pixelization and beautiful 3D rendering. Far Alone Sails is a post-apocalyptic puzzle game where you control your time-worn machine across a vast open world of desolate seas.